So
we are
we're going to
good.
start promoting Star Trek.
We are going to become a spaceship channel.
Cool.
We're going to be the only spaceship channel on YouTube that does not accept money and has one of the three main guys and knows dick about Star Trek.
You don't know what? I could do technical analysis on spaceships.
I could actually take their light speed pattern and decide if it's going to fly or crash.
I could tell you if it's going to break the trend line or not. That's about it.
That is.
I mean, I like Star Trek, but I don't know crap about rocket ships. I mean, that's like rocket science to me.
Are we already going into the Elon Musk segment?
This whole thing, I got now Stafford actually hooked on Elon.
He's so great. I love him so much.
As Stafford has been doing his due diligence on Elon.
How great is he? Are we living in a simulation?
He's not great. No. He reminds me of Garth of Izar from the original series of Star Trek. He was a decorated Federation captain who went insane. I think he's Elon of Izar. I really do. I think he's going mad.
The advice provided on this podcast is general advice only. All statements made are considered by the participants to be accurate, but accuracy cannot be guaranteed. It has been prepared without taking into account your objectives, financial situations, or needs. All participants in this podcast, including guests, may have a financial interest in any or all of the products or services mentioned. Before acting on this advice, you should consider the appropriateness of the advice, having regard to your own objectives, financial situations, and needs. If any private products are detailed on this podcast, you should obtain a product disclosure statement relating to the products and consider its contents before making any decisions. Where quoted, past performance is not indicative of future results.
Recorded Friday, October 6th, 2017. It's the Money Path Podcast with Bob Iacchino and Mike Arnold, founders of Path Trading Partners. On episode 92, The What and the Why is sponsored by MotiveWave. Go to pathtradingpartners.com and download your 14-day free trial. So let's join Bob and Mike with the casual conversation of news and the markets.
Yeah, he's nuts. I love his insanity, and sometimes I think it's deliberate. Like sometimes I think he's sitting with like his best friend going, what should I say today? What's gonna make me look completely nuts?
So 2 days ago, he spent all day talking with Rick and Morty cartoon characters on Twitter and talking about singularities and stuff. And it's very disturbing. It's just my opinions on him are way too far in the skeptic realm now.
Well, I wish he'd work on building his cars. I mean, isn't that or doing something that people are actually giving him money rather than his? Yeah, he's gone. We'll get into that. I mean, there's some fun stuff that Tesla released this week that was largely ignored by a lot of even the mainstream media, like with their production numbers. But before we get into that, hey,
I have a question for you before we start. So I was thinking of buying GoPro stock because it can't go lower, can it?
It can't go up. Well,
oh wait, what happened this week? I didn't look.
So whenever I hear somebody say it can't go lower.
So little background. I got a call from a friend / client who said that to me on Friday of last week.
You really?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
No.
Yep. And I laughed really loud at the it can't go lower. And he goes, he said to me, you said to look for patterns and stuff, right? It's been going up lately. And then I looked at the chart, and again, this was last Friday, right? So what was the date last Friday?
29th.
29th. And he said, it can't go lower. And I said, well, it's already been lower. And he goes, yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's going back up now. You said to look for things that are going back up. So I glanced at the chart, and I said, I might pause on that one. I just glanced at it. And said, you have a potential for a particular pattern that has a high probability, even though it's going against the R zone. You have a potential for one. Anyway, does anything happen in GoPro?
GoPro. Well, see, I know well, you have Google introduced their new camera this week, which is sort of they introduced their Clips camera, which is a little device that can be held, clipped, or set down. Well, it uses artificial intelligence and facial recognition to, quote, capture beautiful, spontaneous images of your life.
Really?
I don't want a camera like trying to figure out what to capture, like that I'm just randomly setting around. Like,
Mike, you already have something listening to you 24/7 that will not deny sending your information. Why don't you get a camera recording it at the same time?
well, that's too crude.
Why do people want that?
I don't know. But GoPro stock, it went down a bit because like that actually was going to cause it problems. And it's recovered a bit now, but it's bouncing back a little today. What's interesting, oh, look at that. I haven't checked it out in a couple days. Now I have to do my due diligence. Wow. This is fascinating.
What you got?
With the chart pattern on GoPro.
Yeah. Go on.
It's a double top that was triggered.
Right.
And it already went to its first target.
like in a matter of 2 days.
Yeah, it was triggered and went to first target, which was, I didn't even, because I didn't look at GoPro in the last couple days. First target, 965, hit yesterday. Second target will be 935. Would not be surprised to see it retrace a little, declining rotation zone, but this is not a buy. Especially we still have a monster gap that even if it goes to full target on this double, still won't fill the gap. The gap fill has to go down on a closing basis to about $9. So do not buy GoPro.
Well, it's the 106 year anniversary of flight. You know, Orville Wright soared through the air 9 minutes and 45 seconds on October 1911.
So you guys learned me this week because I didn't know that record actually stood for a decade.
Uh-huh.
I never read about it. I never looked into it, but I literally thought that after they went for 9 minutes, like it was just steady progress toward like hours and hours of flight.
No, they really own it. That's probably why that ship in that science fiction show is called the Orville.
Great new show.
Yeah, it's good. It's a utopian future where good things happen. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
What, the Orville?
You want utopia. You don't want dystopia, right?
Well, then you don't want Star Trek Discovery.
How are they doing?
Can I just throw something fun in the mix that's not in the notes?
You can throw anything in the mix you want. This is a free-for-all. This week is very note light because it's been, as I said, not a good week.
Well, did you see that State Street Asset Management got fined $5 million to settle claims that it systematically underpaid females and minorities? State Street is also the company that put the Fearless Girl statue in front of the bull on Wall Street. And that statue, when it was dedicated, was said to represent the advancements in diversity with women on Wall Street.
Okay.
So their next statue is called the Irony Statue?
Exactly. And it's a picture of a white guy in a suit giving money to Fearless Girl. That's what it is. That's the next statue they're commissioning.
You can't make this stuff up anymore.
It's a statue of Mortimer Duke. For those of you that listen to this show and do not know what Trading Places is, please watch it right away. It's a statue of Randolph and Mortimer Duke handing money to her.
Yeah, that's a good example of corporate virtue signaling I've ever seen.
I know, right? I do too. By the way, special guest on the podcast, Chip from Nadex, is just walking over. Come and say hello into the mic.
Hello.
That's Chip.
Hello, Chip.
Mike says hello. Stafford says hello. You listen to our podcast, and now you're going to be on it. You hear that?
Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Chip just walked into my office. Do you need my assistant to get you anything?
Not. Maybe Monday.
Monday?
Okay.
Have a coffee here ready for you.
All right, I'm ready.
angry
You know,
at them.
Chip from Nadex, his name begins with a C, which reminds me of CBS. That was terrible.
Who I'm mad at.
Why it was terrible. Why are you mad at CBS? Mike?
Because they put the Star Trek Discovery just on their alt streaming service. It's the only way you can watch the damn thing, and I refuse to pay for another streaming service for just one show. Yeah, and they made me mad. And now they won't. They said they're getting a lot of subscribers. I'm actually will be interested to see how many they retain after that, because they're like, that's the only show that's worthwhile on their streaming service.
Mm-hmm.
So you're essentially paying for one show.
Yeah, Showtime got me with that.
But that's only in America, right? I mean, everywhere across the world, Netflix actually paid CBS to make the show, so the show's already in profit. But Netflix has the worldwide deal, but not America.
Maybe I should be pissed at Netflix too. And they also raised their prices this week.
Did they?
Yeah, it's going up another $1. Or the cheap one, and
so you're paying for Star Trek and you're not watching Star Trek.
Yeah. What's up with that? But CBS are like, oh, our subscriber count since we've done, our thing has gone up 200%, but they won't release numbers. That's my favorite.
I never heard of All Access before the Star Trek Discovery show. So how did they have any subscribers?
Well, they don't even have their full, even on their back shows, they don't have their full catalog of a lot of shows. So it's bizarre, but I love when people cite stats. It's gone up 200%, but they won't say where it started from or where it ended at. That's always a red flag to me. You're just citing up, hey, my trading account went up 200%. It started at $0.01 and it finished at 2 cents. So what does that tell you? So we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting to see what CBS's All Access does, because they dropped the last show on November 12th, I think.
What do you like about the show?
I saw the first half of the first episode. I'm a Star Trek fan. I like Star Trek.
Is it like in the classic mode of Star Trek? Is that what it is?
No, it's like this.
No.
Have you ever watched one episode of Breaking Bad?
I've watched only one, yeah.
And that's why. It's because you can't watch one. You have to watch them in order because it's serialized. So, this Star Trek Discovery, which will be great when it's done, you can watch them all in one shot. And that's how I did Breaking Bad. I waited till it was off the air. 3 years later, I said, okay, let me check this show out. And I watched the whole thing. It was great. And I think the Discovery, which is going to be about the fall of a Starfleet captain into madness, and maybe that's topical for our time, but a decorated Starfleet captain who's well honored, who goes mad.
That was spectacular.
It actually, I'm going to give it all away. It's actually the story of Garth of Izar from the original series, when Kirk and Spock meet him and he changes form and he can imitate other people like Kirk and Spock. So that's all going to happen in this Starfleet Discovery show, set in before the original series. But spoilers.
So before Stafford says all that, spoiler alert. Oh, you just did.
The Money Path podcast has turned into entertainment and television critiquing podcast now.
That's good, because I can go for 2 hours on the economy segment today. So
good, because but before we get there, and this ties to still in with streaming stuff, because we have Amazon and everything else. So EU orders recoup of $300 million in Amazon back taxes. You want to talk about your politician stuff again and money grabs?
There you go.
You go.
First of all, it's about 4.5 cents to Amazon. So who cares? What did Apple get? 14 billion? I mean, Apple had a B behind it.
Yeah, but this is just starting.
Yeah, it's just money grab. They need to build a bridge or something. Some guy's district.
I'm tired of these money grabs after the fact. So we had the European Commission is trying to ordered Luxembourg to see. Now this is like, you have to go recoup this. Little Luxembourg, like, how big Luxembourg is.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been to Luxembourg twice. Actually, a really
Please
pretty
recoup
place.
250 million euro, which is 294 million, from Amazon in allegedly unpaid taxes. They ruled that Luxembourg had granted the Amazon illegal state aid in the form of a 2003 tax deal, which was extended in 2011. So they're going after that. The regulator also referred Ireland to the block-sized court, the European Court of Justice, for failing to implement its order last year to Dublin retrieve $13 billion from Apple. So there's your Apple tie-in.
There it is, $13 billion.
Yeah, but what Ireland didn't actually get the money yet from Apple.
So I drove from Frankfurt in Germany to Luxembourg twice. And there's literally like one road, and you go through these mountains and over this bridge, and there's this freaking beautiful castle, and there's this town center, and then there's a road with restaurants, and then that's it. You've literally seen all of Luxembourg. The rest of it is like houses and forests. I don't know that if Amazon decided to block the other side of that bridge, if they could even come and get their money. I just don't even think they could get out of Luxembourg.
Well, let's see. Now, tie into Amazon. Amazon, we've talked about all these newfangled delivery services, but Amazon is experimenting with another new one to go up against UPS and FedEx. They're trying to make more products available for free 2-day delivery and relieve overcrowding in its warehouses. They will oversee picking up packages from warehouses of third-party merchants selling goods on Amazon and their delivery to customers' homes. So they're going to be picking up the packages now at the warehouses of these third-party merchants and then delivering them straight to the people's houses instead of. They still might use FedEx and UPS for certain things, but they're starting to just do it themselves with their whole delivery fleet. So more things Amazon taking over.
Yeah, they're, again, long-term buy and hold for me. One of the only ones.
And in the cool tech, groundbreaking from Apple this week in iOS 11.1. Make sure you update rapidly because they added a wizard, a dinosaur, and a mermaid emoji.
I'm offended. I'm just totally offended by these emojis.
What is this thing with emojis? They actually, I have the picture of the new ones in there. They put in a head of broccoli. What? When's the last time you needed to tweet a broccoli emoji to somebody? Please.
You're asking old guys. Don't ask old guys.
Oh, no, there are all sorts of people of all ages that are replacing perfectly good words and perfectly good sentences with pictures that I can't figure out.
I am dumb. Can Apple focus on releasing an operating system that works instead of more emojis?
Now, Mike.
What?
Or a computer I want to buy?
I've spent so much time with Apple over the last 5 days and their High Sierra operating system, which they just patched again, new patch. Can you just focus on some core competency instead of worrying about a mermaid emoji?
I just don't think they're speaking to you anymore, are they?
I am very aggravated. So that was very tongue-in-cheek under the cool tech segment.
Broccoli.
What is going on with crude, Bob?
You mean today or in general?
Well, we've had a big downward move over the last few days. Besides yesterday, which was a sort of a upward recovery move, stopping dead at a significant level that has been on my charts for months.
So the up move yesterday to me was pretty important, and it was pretty, what's the word, appropriate. You had Saudi Arabia's King Salam in Russia, first Saudi monarch to ever visit Russia, right? And essentially, he signed a bunch of deals with Vladimir Putin. Very small, nothing really that big. But you can't tell me that they were not talking about extending the agreement. Here's the thing. OPEC has been rendered toothless by the U.S. shale revolution. OPEC plus Russia is no longer toothless. They are now very toothed, if that's a word. So if the two of them are going to be collaborating on the positive side or colluding on the negative side to control oil prices, they will be able to do that. They'll be able to achieve that. So you've got only 3 producers that approach or surpass that 10 million barrel a day mark, and it's the United States third, Russia second, Saudi Arabia first. And actually Russia and Saudi Arabia flop back and forth depending on how much Saudi Arabia is choosing to produce. So if they did not sign any deals on extending the production cut or anything. But what the OPEC deal now with the cooperation of Russia has done is it's achieved price stability. Mike, in general, what has been the range of crude? 48 to 51, 52 for quite a long time, right? I don't even think it's gone as
besides when it dipped down earlier this summer. But it's been in 48 to 51 for a lot of the past few months.
Right. So that really is stabilization of crude prices. It's also stabilized at an area that doesn't really help U.S. production. Now, U.S. productions continue to rise, but I maintain that it's rising at a slower rate. Mathematically, it is. There's a lot of people that say, oh, well, we get above 50, and then they just turn the spigots on. I've talked about this in the podcast before. You cannot just turn oil wells on. You can't.
You can. It's a switch.
If you look at like today's jobs data, for example, right, you'll see that 1.29% of the job increases for this month were in energy, right? That has to do with this sort of spike above 50 and that sort of stabilization above 50. It doesn't include the data from when they had to like get rid of these people because of it includes the data because of the hurricanes, right? So now going forward, if I'm right that we're now increasing U.S. production at a lower rate, you'll see that number drop. And then in order to, quote unquote, turn the spigots back on, you can't. So I think $50 is about what they're trying to achieve, right around $50. Now, today we're selling off because we're not out of hurricane season yet, right? You've got Hurricane Nate. Actually, it's Tropical Storm Nate. It's not a hurricane yet, but it's expected to strengthen to a hurricane before it hits the Gulf. It's only 40-mile-an-hour winds, but it's headed toward Louisiana with 15 to 25 inches of rain. Now, Louisiana claims that they'll be able to handle that rain. Their pumps will be working. Everything's fine. But you don't want to be low on crude oil if the refineries are shutting down again, and that means stockpiles are going to add up in inventory again. And you're going to get these upturns in stockpiles again. So that's really what today's is. The announcement that it's supposed to strengthen to a hurricane and head right toward that sort of west side of Florida, the Gulf, the Louisiana, Texas area where most of the refining is. That's where we get the sell-off today. So the rally from yesterday was on the perceived collusion between Saudi Arabia and Russia. And then the sell-off today is on the new trajectory and the prediction of strength into a hurricane of May. So we're all over the place, but I still don't think we break out in either direction. And I still think the overall tone is bullish for crude oil. But this is a big sell-off. It's 3% right now.
It's a pretty big sell-off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's our crude update. All right, we've talked about the whole Equifax thing.
Yeah.
I texted you this earlier. Could you
I know where this is going.
So, the IRS just hired Equifax to safeguard taxpayer data. How? A company that just exposed the data of, like, they even came out now this week again and said, oh, we've uncovered more data on more people that was exposed, another 3-point-something million or so. I've lost track of. Essentially, anybody who lives in this country who has a social security number, your information has been exposed by Equifax at this point.
Yeah.
But now the IRS last week awarded the Equifax, it was a no-bid contract. So first of all, they're one of 3 credit reporting agencies, so I don't know why you need a no-bid contract because there's 3 companies that could have at least potentially bid for this. And then you're awarding it on a no-bid sole source order, meaning Equifax is the only company deemed capable of providing these services, of protecting data, which they obviously can't do.
When this is, to me, the biggest news of the week, what you just said.
Yeah, because I have a dystopian view of this deal.
Shoot.
Because they're already breached, they can just hand over all the credit use for every customer to the IRS legally. So now the IRS knows everybody's credit history.
Interesting. Wow.
Well, the IRS came out, quote, following an internal review and an on-site visit with Equifax, the IRS believes the service Equifax provided did not pose a risk to IRS data or systems. At this time, we have no indication of tax fraud related to the Equifax breach, but we will continue to closely monitor the situation. Well,
I don't know. I just don't know.
So Tesla this week, remember back in when they had the launch party of their alpha version of their Tesla Model 3s, you know, they delivered like 30 of them, hand-built ones. And then they said, we're going to build 1,500 by the end of September. Well, They released their deliveries this week, and they've built 260. Tesla, I like this. Tesla badly missed its goal. You think? We built 260 off an estimated 1,500? That's like, that's worse than an F.
That's awful.
That is awful. And they actually think they're going to crank up production to 5,000 a week by the end of the fourth quarter. They're hand building these things. Also, here's what also came out. Among the early production issues, Tesla had to replace battery packs on Model 3s produced in July due to corrections on welds. It also had to replace ground terminal bolts on Model 3s produced in August. Essentially, they recalled every car. That's lucky they didn't produce more, because every car they did in July and August had to be recalled. They are delivering it's a beta test car at best. I don't know another car company that could you imagine Chevy just, we decided to launch a new car. It's not really vetted yet. We're going to have our customers or our employees beta test it for us. And oh, by the way, we've blatantly missed on all our production goals, and we had to recall every car we produced in the first 2 months. How? And then their stock actually rallies on this.
Yeah, they just, again, it's a fanboy stock. Has nothing to do with the value of the company. I don't know how long it's going to take, but Elon, man, cult of personality with that guy is strong.
GM announced this week they'll have 20 electric car models on the road by 2023, and 2 new electric vehicles will be introduced in the next 18 months. GM believes the future is all electric, is what they came out and said this week. Wow. Oh, by the way, this is cool. The company also introduced SURUS, which is Surus, the Silent Utility Rover Universal Superstructure, a fuel cell electric heavy-duty truck with 4-wheel steering. The vehicle is part of GM's plan to introduce fuel cell vehicles to its lineup in addition to plug-in electric vehicles and hybrids.
Didn't General Motors sell over 6,000 Bolts by now, which is their $35,000, 230-plus mile electric car that is a real car on a real assembly line? That is real?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the number was 6,000.
Yeah, but they don't have half a million people who put down a deposit.
Again, the thing that Musk did that was smart was he made it a status symbol. Came out with a $120,000 fast roadster first.
Well, there's a reason why the cars look so ugly. From BMW, the i3 looks ugly. The Nissan Leaf looks ugly. Like all the first generation electric cars look ugly. It's because they all lose the car makers' money, so they can't make them beautiful. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Tesla company has done, is they made beautiful looking cars, but they still have never sold more than 25, built more than 26,000 a quarter.
And they're losing money faster than frickin' Pets.com did.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you really tied Tesla to Pets.com.
Tesla is just burning through money like I burn through toilet paper after certain ethnic foods. By the way, Mike, whenever something is ridiculous from now on, I'm sending you a broccoli emoji.
Please do, and whenever something breaks on one of my Apple computers, I'm going to send you, what am I going to send you? Because you're going to be inundated with...
Send me the mermaid.
You want the mermaid?
Well, I don't want the wizard.
I'm going to send you the porcupine.
All right, send me the porcupine or send me this weird vampire. What is with this vampire?
I don't know. It looks like a transgender vampire.
It's a transgender gray skin vampire.
We're going off the rails. Cryptocurrency segment. Goldman Sachs, the evil behemoth from Wall Street, explores the new world of trading Bitcoin. Move would make it the first big Wall Street firm to deal directly in the growing yet controversial cryptocurrency market.
Yeah.
Goldman Sachs is weighing a new trading operation dedicated to Bitcoin and other digital currencies. Goldman's effort is in the early stages and may not proceed, the people said, but the firm's interest could boost Bitcoin's standing among investors, except with JP Morgan. Quote, in response to client interest in digital currencies, we are exploring how to best serve them in this space, a Goldman spokeswoman said.
Wow.
That would be very interesting. In some ways, they're getting more legitimate, and here's why we are not backing ICOs. The SEC accused 2 digital coin creators of ripping off investors. It has charged cryptocurrency-backed real estate and diamond companies owned by one businessman. The U.S. Securities Exchange Commission first ICO-related charges brought against the businessman and his 2 companies. They're bringing charges against Maxim Zaskalat. I cannot say that. Zaslaski.
Hold on, let me find it in the notes. Where is it?
You can replace that with broccoli.
Maxim Laskavisky.
All right, there you go. They've accused him of defrauding investors by selling virtual currencies backed by assets that don't exist. So his first company, called Recoin Group Foundation, quote, the first ever cryptocurrency backed by real estate. It was never backed by real estate. It raised, let's see, Recoin had already raised between $2 million and $4 million, but the actual amount he said it raised between 2 and 4, but it actually raised only $300,000. And after the government started looking into his Recoin activities, he founded the Diamond Reserve Club, which he promised to use people's money to invest in diamonds. However, he never bought a single diamond or invested in diamonds.
That's as ridiculous as doing an ICO for sports betting.
And there you go.
There you go.
Quote, this is from the SEC. Investors should be wary of companies touting ICOs as a way to generate outsized returns. As alleged in our complaint, Mr. Brock investors with false promises of sizable returns from novel technology. Be very careful and do your due diligence in the ICO marketplace, please. And it's sometimes very difficult to do proper due diligence. So if you're going to invest, only invest money you are willing to lose in case it goes sideways or in case the person is a complete fraudster. That's all I had in cryptocurrencies this week.
That's not enough.
Would you like some new breaking crypto news?
Yep.
I better find it then.
So, Bob, I do have a good question.
Go.
I've been watching a lot of Bob Lutz, who was at Chevy a long time, and he was the one that pushed the Chevy Volt with a V forward and did it as an open source project. So everybody saw the development happen in real time on the internet and stuff. And it went through traditional automotive manufacturing protocols, right? No corners were cut. Everything was by the book. Everything's tested at all temperatures, all moistures, all intensities, all vibrations, right? Things that other car companies might not do. But GM really did all this stuff. So, that's why the Bolt now, which is all electric, is a legitimate car and is a real product. Is General Motors undervalued?
As a stock?
Yes.
No. Tesla's overvalued.
Gotcha.
The only world that GM is undervalued to me is in Tesla's world. And Tesla's world exists on Mars and in Elon's head. And no, look, Tesla to me is going to be one of those. So you could make a lot of money trading Tesla, and you could make a lot of money owning it at the right time. And it's funny because I'll refer sort of back to cryptocurrency since we were talking about the cryptocurrency segment. I saw a fund manager whose name I'll leave out do an interview saying that he thinks cryptocurrencies are a bubble. He goes, but he thinks saying it in a blanket statement like that is irresponsible because we just don't know which ones are going to be around and which ones aren't. Obviously, the ones that aren't going to be around are in a bubble, and the ones that will be around might be fairly valued. They might be overvalued. We're really not sure. I feel like it's the same thing where Tesla is making technology automotive companies worth more than they should be. Things like, I forget the name of the company that Google just bought, or Google bought recently. Yeah, Google, and they did a deal with, I believe, Avis. That deal was probably overpaid for, and that's in the Tesla world. General Motors, to me, because of the direction they've gone in, is becoming a longer-term buy and hold because I think they're correct. I think the world is probably 75% electric in the future, if not more. And they're also pretty far ahead in self-driving. They're toward the lead on that as well. So I don't want to say it's undervalued, but I think it's a long-term hold.
Thank you. That is excellent analysis. That's fantastic. Haven't seen that with my research. Excellent. I like that very much.
It's properly valued here, and it's probably going to grind higher because of the lead they're in those two spaces and the infrastructure they have in place to capitalize on that lead.
Grind higher. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've really broken out recently in the last 3-4 weeks. I mean, I'd be waiting for a pullback now, especially because on their chart, they closed above major resistance 2 weeks ago when they closed right around 39.50, and now they're at 45.17.
What'll be really interesting to me, again, and we've talked about this before, is if they're able to make a good-looking, like, Cadillac finally means quality again.
Oh, for sure.
It finally does. And it took how long, Stafford? 35 years to get there? 30 years to get back there?
It probably took 2 CEOs of the division, and it took like 3 or 4 body rebuilds, where they had to retool it to European standards, Nuremberg standards to race for racing.
It took decades, right? And they definitely went in a different design direction, which paid off, right, with the sharp angles. And people it grew on people. And if you come out with a $90,000 Cadillac that is better performing, has better warranties, has dealerships, has dealer support network, all those things, and it's 100% electric, and it does 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and has ludicrous mode and things like that. Tesla's got problems. We've talked about that.
Well, Tesla's doing top down, right? They started with like a $200,000 Roadster, and they're going down. And the model's not working. It's a pyramid that's inverted, and it can't hold itself up. But Chevy's doing the opposite. They're doing bottom up. That Bolt, it may not look like the sexiest car, but for in-town runaround, it is great.
And in other Bitcoin news, another Bitcoin derivative firm just withdrew its filings at SEC request. So Connecticut-based Rex ETS requested a pullback and an amendment. They were going to do 2 Bitcoin ETFs, a long and a short one, and they've had to withdraw it. So still no traction in getting Bitcoin ETFs really into the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
SEC just is not liking it.
They do not, nor will they. I had a long conversation. I had my monthly cousins dinner this week, and I couldn't believe how difficult it was to explain to the average intelligent, middle-class working Joe, right? And trying to explain inflation to them was extremely difficult. Trying to get them to understand that the dollar buys less and why it buys less and how, the basics. It always seems to me interesting, and I'll go into this in my why, but it always seems to me interesting that the basics of supply and demand, when applied to cash money, fiat currency, is very difficult for people to grasp. Very difficult for them to understand why a dollar would ever buy less if it's still a dollar. It was very interesting to me. I don't know why I just brought that up.
But it's a dollar, Bob.
I know. I mean, just to go into this a tiny bit, and I'll do it in my why, is that my one cousin said that he doesn't understand why when muscle cars first came out, you could buy one for $7,000 and one person could afford them. But now if you go to buy a Mustang, they're $40,000. And if a family wants it, they have to have both people working and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I went into the whole because there's more dollars chasing fewer goods. And they were like, yeah, but it's still a Mustang. Like a brand new Mustang now is $40,000.
Yeah, but back then you could buy 4 Mustangs. You could buy 4 Mustangs and get a house. And now you can buy 4 Mustangs and get a house.
Right. That's what I couldn't get them. There's a baseline, right? And when you've got more dollars chasing fewer goods, the price of things go up. When you had, like my family, when my brother and I were of driving age, there was only recently 2 cars. Only recently. My father drove the one car and my mother took the train to work, and they worked it out like that. You know, so now you've got 2 people working, but they also pay for a lot more things like cell phones, and the 16-year-old needs a car because you have to be driven to school. You can't ride your bike to school or the freaking school won't let you in.
What?
This is something we go through with my sister every year at the beginning of the school year. She has to leave a list of people that are allowed to drop off and pick up the kids.
Okay.
If you're not on that list, you can't pick the kid up. And if the kid shows up with anyone else, they call the police.
It's a matter of time before they have that Google camera and tracking bracelet.
I think Google's going to be driving the kids to school in a self-driving pod of some sort. Yes, CIA.
Maybe that's a new service for Amazon. They could just deliver your kids back and forth.
You just hit a $1 billion idea right there.
Amazon delivery of children to school and back home.
Amazon.
You know, you tie that in with Walmart, you know, with their new delivery thing where they'll unlock your house and drop it off inside. Literally, they could pick your kid up from school. Your list is who's on the list? Amazon. And Amazon picks up your kid, takes them home, the door unlocks, they put them inside, and they leave and the door locks behind them.
October 6th, 11:40 Central, 12:40 Eastern. Mike gives Amazon their next idea. Time stamped.
I'm shorting bus companies. It's just like...
You're shorting bus companies and proper parenting.
No, I still see it this week. Let me check in on, I got more articles this week, and I was doing my due diligence into Elon's rocket ship propelling people around the planet. Insane idea, which is never going to work. And I'm getting, meanwhile, more things about shorting. Because of Elon, we should all short the airline stocks. I mean, these are literally analysts, or they're proclaiming themselves to be analysts, and that we should short the airline industries because of Elon Musk and his rocket ship around the world.
Wow.
Do people do any work anymore?
I got to get to one of those jobs.
Like, legitimately, you do not short airlines because Elon Musk proposes launching people from L.A. to Paris in a friggin' 30-minute rocket ship. It's not going to happen.
You mean you didn't short the railroads when he said he was going to do his deep tunnel dig?
His
boring company?
What is that? It was the thing on rails?
Yeah, the boring company.
No, but that's the company that bores it. But what does the company, what was that? The Hyperloop.
Yeah, the Hyperloop.
You want to know something? Did you ever watch the competition for the Hyperloop?
No.
The winners of the Hyperloop competition actually had like an electric vehicle that just rode on the middle rail and didn't use any of the pressures. The thing that actually, it didn't need a Hyperloop to function. Meanwhile, the Hyperloop bought up all of SpaceX's old rocket parts, you know, the old cylinder rocket parts that they didn't have a use for. So he proposed another company to. That's what the whole Hyperloop thing was. It was to buy parts of his other companies.
So fantastic. I love him.
Oh.
He's going to run out of distractions. He's going to be building dirigibles and say, oh, they're lighter than air, and they'll fly all over the world. And isn't it amazing, this huge craft? That was done like in 1940, buddy.
Unbelievable.
U.S. economy segment? Before we'll get to non-farm payrolls in a bit, let me just go through a couple other numbers and then some forecasts for third quarter GDP models, and then we'll get to the payroll numbers, which you can talk about. But U.S. manufacturing PMI beat 53.1, expected 53. Manufacturing ISM came in at 60.8 versus expectations of 58.1. ISM non-manufacturing 59.8 versus expectations of 55.5. And factory orders 1.2% versus expectations of 1.0. A lot of these numbers are somewhat hurricane distorted. So because of they actually distort some of these ISM numbers and everything, non-manufacturing PMI, because companies, it's viewed, it actually raises the number if they can't deliver product as fast, because and the numbers actually are assumed that that's bullish because, hey, it means you can't keep up with orders, but they couldn't keep up with orders because a lot was shut down due to hurricanes.
Right.
So those numbers aren't as strong as they would otherwise look. So we will see other numbers reflect that in the future. Just wanted to clarify that. And GDP Now forecast, 3 different GDP Now models came out this week. First it started at 2.7, then it went to 2.8, and then this morning it came in at 2.5 for the third quarter projection. That's the Atlanta Fed. The New York Fed, with their nowcast model, is sitting at 1.53% for third quarter GDP. Now we're on to payrolls.
Yeah, back to the hurricane distortion. So some of the things we've seen is that numbers, and Mike's right about the PMIs and all that, we may not see that big of an adjustment because, for example, non-farm payrolls during Katrina, I'm sorry, not non-farm payrolls, jobless claims during Katrina had about 3 or 4 weeks of distortion in them. We're already back to normal on jobless claims. Jobless claims had a 1-week distortion, and last week's jobless claims was actually semi-normal. So it's kind of a credit. We're actually doing really well. And contrary to what you might hear, it's a credit to, and I never say this, but it's a credit to the government and FEMA as to how quickly they've actually gotten things fairly back to normal. Having said that, we'll see in the coming weeks if that is incorrect, but that's the assumption that's being made on a lot of this stuff. Now, the non-farm payroll is obviously affected by the 2 hurricanes, minus 33,000 on the headline number. It's the first negative number in 7 years. We have not had a negative non-farm payrolls headline number since 2010. Wage growth at 2.9%. That is a strong number. Strongest number we've had in a while. Unemployment ticked down to 4.2%. Not that much of a change from the labor participation rate to say that was entirely labor participation rate. Some economists, including the guy at Goldman now, are out saying that we're going to get a sub 4% unemployment rate soon. By soon, because he's an analyst, could be next week or 10 years. Those guys are not bound by any sort of time frame. So the interesting thing to me about this number is that a while back, we had inflation numbers above 2%, and it was imported inflation based on the weak currency. This is probably 18 months ago, and the Fed did not raise rates. And now we've got an opportunity with what I think is going to be a temporary wage spike. I don't think it's sustainable. The economic numbers are strong, but they are not blowout, incredible, crazy strong. They're going to get stronger again because of the hurricane. Because you've got people going down to rebuild, hurricanes, I should say. You've got people going down to rebuild. They're in demand. It's insurance company money. People spike up their rates. This is not coming through in the data yet. This particular 2.9% is fairly organic, but it's going to happen where, a guy has a little handyman's job and people are spending the insurance company's money, so he gives a little bit higher of a quote. This stuff's going to bleed into the data for quite a while. The Fed now has an opportunity to raise rates into higher wages. I still maintain they are raising rates because they want to, not because the economy needs it. We still don't see inflation. We're just starting to see wage growth. So they're raising rates because they want to have runway in case a recession or a crisis comes. They have the opportunity to do it now, just like they had it about 18 months ago when we actually had inflation above 2%. Again, that inflation was driven by a weaker currency, not by an expansion was by an expansion of the money supply, which is really what inflation is, what the original definition of inflation is. But now they've actually got real wage growth showing up in the numbers. Whether it's sustainable or not, it's not the point. They're going to take this opportunity to raise rates. The probability of a rate hike in December has gone from 37% 2.5 weeks ago to 88.2% this morning after the non-farm payrolls number. It was actually above 90% for a little while, and it dropped back down. The interesting part to me, though, is not the December rate hike. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong month. Right now, this December rate hike probability is 86.7%. That was the one that was above 90% this morning, and it's dropped off a little bit. But the interesting part to me is the probability of a second rate hike in March. Okay, so taking Fed funds from what is now 1 to 1.25% target rate, all the way to 1.5 to 175. So a 50 to 75 basis point rate hike has jumped up to 31.5%. Now, if you think that 2.5, 3 weeks ago, the chance of one rate hike was at 37%, now the chance of two rate hikes is at 31.5%. This is people starting to believe the Fed. So the dollar is going to continue to get stronger, which will have a negative effect on pricing, on prices, because whatever we import now is cheaper. That's a huge move. We saw yields approach 240 on the 10-year. They went to like 238.9. And we saw 2-year yields jump above 152 after the number. I haven't seen where they are now. It is now real that to the market that the Fed is raising rates, and you might see a little bit of a slowdown in equities. We have the longest winning streak for the S&P since 2013. And today we're going to end the streak of record highs in the S&P, which the record high streak was going back all the way to 1997. We're probably not going to get a new record high today. We don't have it yet. And this, like I mentioned the time earlier, it's close to 12 o'clock Central Time now. So it's unlikely that we have that. So that streak's going to end. Don't be surprised if you start to see a little bit of weakness in the equity markets because people now actually believe the Fed.
Day's still young, Bob. Day's still young.
It is still young.
You could
and people are still permanently bullish. So
the afternoon ramp up,
Mm-hmm.
You could have it. Although we are sort of due for a return to the rotation zone.
Mm-hmm.
Anything do you have on the international and currency markets?
No.
Nothing going on?
Yeah, there is. Theresa May gave a disastrous speech a couple of days ago, and there's now a growing chorus of people that want her to step down in the UK. And if you look, we're working on the third down week of the sterling versus the US dollar and the 12th of the last 15 days down. So the sterling is definitely, I don't know if you've looked at the chart of the sterling, but the sterling is definitely getting smacked. I mean, just completely killed.
What was disastrous about her?
She said a lot of things that nobody wanted to hear. She stuttered, she stammered, she used incorrect names. Even like, she had a sign behind her, and it said, "For the good of your country," or something like that, and the Y fell off the wall. I mean, while she was speaking. You just kind of got to watch the speech. The subject matter of the speech wasn't taken well anyway. She was not adhering to sort of the terms of the Brexit vote. She was being kind of wishy-washy on the EU. Again, talking about just adopting the EU's laws and going from there, which it's like, why would you take the EU's laws, which is the disadvantage, and leave the EU, leave the advantages of the EU, right? You're going to take their laws, but you're going to be out of the centralized market. Just didn't make any sense. So the context of the speech was bad as it was. She's kind of falling apart. Like today, she said she had important meetings with business people next week. Business people? What are business people? Is it CEOs of major companies in the UK? What is it?
That's where you put your air quotes up. Business
Exactly.
people.
Exactly.
She's aliens.
She's had a really bad week. I mean, the Y fell off the wall. It was so funny. She's talking, all of a sudden the Y falls off.
Do you know why it fell off?
No, I don't. I got the joke there.
Should that be in our Y segment?
Yeah, that means 6-month delay means that there's no Brexit.
Is it going to happen or not, Bob?
What?
Brexit.
Yeah. It's going to be a version of Brexit where they're still in the EU. So there you go. That's how it's going to be.
Well, then it's not Brexiting.
I'm just saying. We don't dictate what it's called. That's what it's going to be.
We live in very weird times.
I know the whole of Parliament is going to be waving the Union Jack, and then they're going to be like, "We're still the EU, but we Brexited. We're fine."
I don't understand anything anymore.
Why would you?
Today's edition of The What and the Why is brought to you by Motive Wave Software. Motive Wave Software is a well-established developer of easy-to-use, full-featured charting, analysis, and trading software built for the individual trader. Motive Wave offers the best charting tools used by the pros, such as Elliott Wave, Fibonacci, Gartley, Gann ratio analysis, but it's presented in a very easy-to-use way. Motive Wave has a product to fit any budget and any trading style, and one of the very best features, it's available on Windows and Mac. So go to pathtradingpartners.com right now to get your 14-day free trial, and then visit them at motivewave.com.
My why is inflation and why it's important. Okay, and it stems from my monthly cousin dinner. People need to understand first what inflation was, and then what it means now, and how they're related. And I may have covered this before, but it's a very important subject. So the actual definition of inflation is an expansion of money. It's not an increase in prices. Okay? You inflate the money supply. Think of a balloon inflating, right? Inflation, in its original meaning, can only really be gauged against gold, right? It really can't, because it's the only sort of stable asset. You could probably do it against real estate, but even though people say that, land is the only thing they're not making more of, actually gold is the other thing they're not making more of. You just can't live in gold. But they are making more houses, and they are building more condos and apartments, and you can't really price the actual dirt, because you can actually make more dirt. If the U.S. government decided to sell a section of Yellowstone National Park to real estate developers, it would probably be worth quite a bit of money.
No, it wouldn't, because there's a dormant supervolcano under it.
What's another national park?
I'm not buying the one that has a
Snake River
volcano.
Canyon. Snake River Canyon. If they're going to sell an area of Evel Knievel's Snake River Canyon. So anyway, you have to gauge inflation, RE the US dollar versus the value of gold. Now, a lot of people, just like my cousins, said, well, what do I care what it is worth gold? If somebody gave me gold, I would just go get dollars for it. That's what makes it a difficult conversation, right? People are like, well, I would just go get dollars for it because I can't go. We were at a restaurant. He's like, I can't pay for my buffalo wings in gold here. Like, okay, so you've just kind of made the point, right? So how many dollars would you get for that gold? People look at it in reverse. It's sort of like math. When you multiply before adding and subtracting, the answer comes out incorrect, right? It's sort of like that. Anyway, inflation has turned into a word that means prices going up or going down. But what people need to understand, that isn't what inflation really is. What it really is the expansion of the money supply, which essentially has been happening for 40 years. All right, it's been happening for a long, long time. If you look at a chart of the U.S. dollar versus gold, there's some sideways up and down movement, and then there is a straight down movement of the dollar versus gold. Now, all that means is the dollar has been able to buy less and less. But the Fed has put more and more in circulation. So you haven't really felt it. You've felt some price appreciation, but when I was a kid, a gallon of milk was $1.50, and now it's $4. Right? You think, okay, that's not much. Well, it's actually, Mike, what's the percentage on that? It's pretty high. It's 250%, something like that. Anyway, the reason this is important is because right now the Federal Reserve wants to restrict the supply of money. They want to stop the expansion of the supply of money for however temporary that's going to be. So what that now means is that this ever-expanding supply of dollars the expansion is going to slow or even stop. So prices of things will actually continue to rise into that, and your life will theoretically get a little bit harder. That's why stocks sell off. You will have fewer dollars to buy things that are now more expensive when compared to gold. So when you see interest rates rise, it's not just that your mortgage payment goes up or your credit card bill goes up. Your ability to take your standard of living to the next level shrinks. It gets harder to do, right? This is, to me, what people need to focus on and what they need to look at when you're talking about the stock market and why the stock market might go down if the Fed raises rates. There's less money to go around to buy fewer things. Even though it may seem to you like you're working harder for more money, you're actually working harder for the same amount of money. Just inflation, the expansion of the money supply, has caused things to cost more of those dollars than you need. Inflation is not technically an increase in prices. It's an increase in the money supply. Again, important because it affects your standard of living. People don't look at it that way. That's my why.
What was the second thing you said? Way back when?
First thing or the second?
The second.
The first thing or the second thing? I'm confused.
The second thing that you said first.
I don't remember.
And you lost me completely. Why does my hamburger cost more?
What's that?
Why does my hamburger cost more?
Because you can't pay for it in gold.
I can't pay for it in Bitcoin because they won't accept it.
Well, that again, the scarcity thing is what the value of Bitcoin is. It's scarcity and acceptance. Those two things almost seem like they're contrary, but they're not. If Bitcoin were to start being accepted more places, then the scarcity would increase and the value of Bitcoin would increase.
What if I don't want to accept its scarcity?
Huh?
I don't want to accept that it's scarce.
Oh, then it's a bubble.
Okay.
There you go.
So is Bitcoin a bubble?
No. Bitcoin's probably overvalued, but I don't think it's a bubble.
Good answer.
Yeah. I don't.
What's its fair value?
That I have no idea.
And
probably closer to where Monero is, because that's my favorite.
You actually made an incorrect statement.
What?
About land.
What?
You actually can produce more land.
Can you?
Yeah, look at Dubai.
Oh, good point.
That worked out well. That worked out really well.
What? You could live on a palm tree shaped island.
Yeah, all the houses are built. They're all empty. They're all built really well. That's sarcasm.
But you can create more land.
Well, still,
and you can also build an airport like they created.
You can't really create more land than there is the potential for land. In other words, if you filled every ocean up into land, it would still end. It's a finite amount.
No, Mars, duh.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. You either like Elon or you don't.
We could go to Mars in the BFD.
That's only if we're living in a simulation.
Big friggin' destruction.
All right, guys, I got to go. Mike, do you want me to sign out or you want to do your what quick?
I don't have a what.
Go to the Path Chat educational conversations about cryptocurrencies. There's a bunch of what's in there.
There's what's every day.
Seriously, guys, check out our YouTube channel if you haven't. And cheers, guys. Good to talk to you this week. I'll talk to you next week.
Talk to you later.